welcome to our first episode of It's Time to Talk. Today, our first episode will be about health anxiety after losing a parent. Today, myself, Libby, will be hosting today's episode alongside with trustee Jade. We are joined by two brilliant guests today. We have got Dr Marianne Trent, who is a clinical psychologist, and she's also an It's Time advisor. So thank you for coming on today. And we've also got Becki Marie, who is a wellness educator and a mental health advocate. So thank you, Becki, for also being here today. So I guess to kind of kickstart what this whole new series is all about, we could kind of break down what it is that we're hoping to do with it. And we kind of just wanted to create a space to discuss different topics that can affect people who have lost a parent. Some might be more age specific to young people who have lost a parent, but today's topics such as health anxiety could obviously be helpful for anyone who's lost a parent. But to also educate through inviting guests on, such as yourself today, to share your knowledge and also personal experiences with any listeners about a specific topic. So a little bit about me. I'm Libby. I am the marketing and operations exec for It's Time, and I joined back in April and I've loved every minute of it so far. And I lost my dad 10 years ago this summer, and he was ill for a long time. He had multiple sclerosis, and the last 2 years of his life he was in a care home, so he had quite poor health for a long time. So in terms of that, I think I'll certainly be able to contribute to the conversation a little bit alongside Jade.
Thanks, Libby. That was a great introduction. Hi all, I'm Jade. I'm one of the trustees of It's Time. I think I became a trustee coming up to 18 months ago. Now I'm involved in a number of different in-flight projects, but also supporting on recruitment and employee experience. So work really closely with Libby. As Libby mentioned, today's topic is on health anxiety, which can be heightened after losing a loved one. And like Libby mentioned, this was suggested by our community, so that's why we reached out to our amazing guests today. This conversation will be supported by 4 questions that will go out to both of our guests. But without further ado, if we could get Becki and Marianne to introduce themselves, that'd be great. Marianne, would you like to go first?
Sure. So I am Dr Marianne Trent, and I'm a clinical psychologist, as Libby rightly said. And I've sort of come into a little bit of grief specialism, almost accidentally, really, as grief will do for you. So I lost my dad in 2017. He'd been unwell since 2015, 16-ish, and he died of esophageal with secondaries to his lung cancer. And at that point I was married and I had young children, and so that was kind of unique challenges as well. But I then ended up putting together a book called The Grief Collective, which has seen me kind of really bring conversations online about grief, really. So that's, I guess I like to think I'd be here anyway if I wouldn't have got it in the same way.
Great, thanks. And Becki?
Hi everyone, thank you for having me. I'm Becki. I'm founder of Big Love Movement, and I call myself a wellness educator. I'm a yoga and mindfulness mentor too, and a mental health advocate, because I really do have some experience of the wonders of mental well-being. I guess I'm in this space with you guys because we share that very familiar experience of grief and losing a parent, a loved one. I lost my father when I was 13, back in, giving away my age, 1997. And that, of course, was extremely challenging as a child to go through. And I don't think I realised, and probably until my 30s, how disconnected I was in body and mind from myself. And that was, with the word journey is a bit of a cringe word, but I worked in fashion for 15 years until 3 years ago. So there was a process that I went through where yoga and mindfulness started to, along with therapy, a fantastic therapist introduced me to EMDR, but I then started to discover my own body responding very well to somatic practices of breath work and yoga. So I started to explore that deeper personally, and then decided, you know what, this needs to be shared with more people. More people need to know how to support and sustain their everyday well-being, not just dipping in and out. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you both so much. I think, yeah, you'll both be able to kind of, in your own way, contribute a lot to like some of the conversations. But I think what's really lovely is that we all do share that experience of having lost all our dads, I think it seems. So, yeah, and how, you know, losing a parent, connecting to health anxiety, and, you know, the kind of different experiences that you can have. Yeah, so thank you very much for joining us today. So I guess a good kind of starting point is, and Dr. Marianne, I will ask you the first question, is what is health anxiety, and how can different people experience it?
Okay, so health anxiety it's like normal anxiety, but on LSD, I'd say. So it's, you know, it's the real worry that something, you know, a sore throat or, you know, a slightly achy chest could then become something that is life-changing, life-altering, life-limiting. And it can feel difficult to contain that. So you might find that that overcomes many of your waking thoughts, and that it keeps you from achieving sleep as well, so it robs you of your sleep. What we know about health anxiety is some people tend to focus in on the same health anxiety. You get a lot of it with breast cancer, often with left boobs. There's some sort of dynamic mother theory there, but we won't go into that. But some people kind of will be more focused on one particular fear, which is maybe linked to a trauma. It might be linked to something they've had experience of in their family, and they really worry about that. But it's all thought to possibly be something around unprocessed trauma. But health anxiety more generally can expand to different health anxieties. So every time you get a headache, people who have health anxiety might begin to worry they've got a brain tumor, for example. Or, you know, if they get a slightly achy wrist, they start to then worry, and when I say worry, I mean Google quite excessively about arthritis, for example. And it goes on and it goes on and it goes on. And what we know is that this can often be about control or lack of control. So we saw it go through the roof a little bit with COVID, of course, where people were tending to doom scroll, actually, just constantly looking and refreshing and trying to get more information about COVID and the risk to ourselves. But actually, when we delve down, when we boil down and we keep going, well, what's the fear? What's the fear? What's the fear? We keep pushing. We realize, well, actually, I'm not really worried about myself dying. You know, I'm worried about my children dying, or, you know, I'm worried about my little old granny who's really vulnerable. I'm worried that if I get it and then my kids get it, and then you're responsible for killing your granny. That's how it boils down, you know? And so when we can kind of deal with that bottom line fear and then work backwards, we can learn a little bit. I'm probably tripping over all sorts of other questions here, but we can learn a little bit more about distress tolerance and handling and tolerating those distressing thoughts. So health anxiety is, in a nutshell, a way of managing really distressing, challenging thoughts, but in a way that feels like you're taking some control. But it can be quite debating.
It's really interesting, actually, because especially with media, when throughout the pandemic, like the death toll was going up, people were so obsessed with watching the hospital admissions and death, etc., keep increasing, and I think that just on top of what was going on and being in lockdown, I bet it really did heighten. And that's probably kind of our next question for you, unless Becki had anything you wanted to add on the first question. Or
I think, well, Marianne is the expert here, and I think it's just so interesting for everyone listening to realise. I think there'll be a few people, even I was listening, going, "Oh, yeah, I think I had a little bit of this at some point." For years, I was scared of having a partner, and my partner dying of a heart attack, because that's what my mum experienced with her husband, my dad. Then that morphed into, well, actually, he's my father, therefore it will be me that's going to die of a heart attack. So, it's, and that's me fluffing things up a little bit, but I think this is really going to be educational for me and everyone listening. So
even you just saying that just gave me goosebumps, because I get like that with my partner. If he gets a tummy ache or something happens to him, I'm like, oh, like I associate straight with my dad died of bowel cancer. So your mind just plays tricks with you and kind of takes you down that horrible journey, with like about like going back through what you've experienced before. So yeah, definitely I think everyone will take something from it.
Just to normalize that, so my dad died of esophageal cancer, and one of the kind of reasons they think could potentially possibly be a reason why people get it while others don't is really, really hot cups of tea. So my dad loved a really, really hot cup of tea, to the extent where if I touched it, it would burn me, and so for me it was like, well, did that potentially lead to a vulnerability? Because I'd be like, Dad, you can't drink that, I've literally just boiled the kettle, you can't drink that. And then one of my best friends is also the same, to the extent where in a soft play centre I was crying, going, oh please, no, stop adding cold water to your drinks, like, and it's because you don't want that to happen again. It's about looking for control.
Yeah, definitely. And that probably goes into the next question for you, Becki, around with COVID-19 and the pandemic. How has it impacted health anxiety with the people that you work with? And again, it probably goes back to that control element and that lack of control we had in the pandemic. And have you seen that heighten? And kind of a follow-up question on that is, are people up for incorporating new ways of looking after themselves? So have you seen a transition since the pandemic?
Really juicy questions there. I think, well, definitely, I think we all suddenly became very aware, much more aware of our health. The slightest tickle in our throat, the loss of breath, someone next to you walking down the street coughing, just the slightest thing. I know people who now are scared to cough in public because someone's going to think they've got COVID. Yeah. I would say the community that I work with have become far more, they're in my community because they want to become more self-aware, but they've become very aware and conscious of their health and the health of their loved ones. So I think if you were already very concerned about your health and your well-being, and that those are the ones you loved, that has been heightened because a massive flashlight's been put on all of that for us all. I would actually say that it's made COVID two things. Lockdown, the element of control is interesting, because what did lockdown do? It took control away from us. Our lifestyles were taken away. Connections, such an important part of well-being is connection and community. To have that taken away, what are you in control of? I would say that element of restriction, limitation, and things being taken away is going to add to health anxiety and to that need for finding things that you can control and understand and learn more about. What I found is that people have become very curious about how they can actually support themselves better, because again, access to things that they were used to that made them feel good, the gym, friends, even just popping into to a health shop or whatever, was limited. So I think it created a curiosity. I certainly saw a large number of people come into my space for the first time to experience for the first time yoga and mindfulness in very basic ways, because they had the time suddenly. They'd been curious for a while, and now they felt this was the perfect excuse to actually really entertain that curiosity. So yeah, in answer to your question, I think I've answered your question, but I definitely think there's more interest now in well-being and how to understand our emotions better, perhaps. And if the element of control is a huge part of health anxiety, then learning tools and having the resources to hand is going to be really supportive of that.
And it also came to the front of like employers' minds as well, didn't it? It was a bit of a taboo, wasn't it, pre-pandemic, around well-being and mental health within the workplace. It was pretty much unspoken, but this really brought it to the forefront of the conversations, and more and more now in benefits, etc. You will always see something around well-being now, which is obviously so important.
Yeah, I've got clients that wanted workshops throughout whilst working from home, and that was amazing. And I was very worried it would become that fleeting trend, but I think because of how long we were in lockdown, how it's kind of carried over the working from home, I hope there's some consistency or sustainability in well-being in the workplace, certainly, because we spend a lot of our time at work. So as much as I have the community where people will come to me outside of working hours, it's amazing to have been able to work with clients, with their employees. Yeah, definitely.
To kind of go off what you both brought up in terms of control, and to kind of, I guess, circle it back to losing a parent. Losing a parent is it's something you're so not in control of, isn't it? Whether it's a sudden situation where you've lost a parent, or they have been ill for a long time, and you can't, to certain degrees, I guess you can, prevent certain things, but with a lot of things you can't. And Dr. Marianne, would you say that individuals who have lost a parent, who had poor health, who were maybe ill for a long time, would you say there's a correlation between those individuals experiencing health anxiety after losing a parent?
I don't know of any evidence that suggests that people who've nursed someone, I guess, for want of a better word, are any more likely to develop palliative to health anxiety than someone who's had an unexpected loss. I think it's the effect of trauma, and it's the sense we make of it, and it's how well resourced we are at the time. So I remember my own experiences of being in really rude health when my dad was very, very unwell. I was a breastfeeding mother at the time. I couldn't have been much healthier. And I remember sitting by his bedside, and at that point he probably had about 10 days left to live, and he was in hospital, and he was so very, very thin, so painfully thin, and he was asleep. And I just remember looking down at my legs, looking down at my thighs, and I'm only about size 8, size 10, something like that anyway, but just looking at my thighs and feeling almost guilty that I was so healthy, that I had, not excess weight, but I had enough weight that I could be feeding another person, essentially, which is what I was doing. And it really led me to think, if I was less secure, this could lead me to having issues about my own eating, my own wellness, and my own path with things. But I think it is about how well resourced we are at the time, but also how traumatic it is, how we're told, how it's handled, whether you're able to have any semblance of control. So when I'm doing trauma debrief work, when people have been involved in big incidents, for example, having a semblance of control, even in something that feels out of control, can be really important. So when we're looking at loss and grief, it can be useful to help think about, well, what did you feel more in control of at that time? So even small things, like if someone was in hospital, did they say you can visit any time, or did they say you can only visit 2 till 4? And sometimes just having that control to spend more of your time, or to get it to fit more around your day, can be the small enough difference that makes the difference.
I guess,
kind of
no, it does. And but I also think it kind of brings up that for some people, then it may lead to health anxieties, whether it's with themselves or with other close loved ones, or it could lead down to all coexist, because you can experience lots of different things all in one go, or kind of like going off what you said, like a guiltiness for your own good health, and a kind of questioning of, why them, or like why, just why in certain instances where it maybe seems confusing as to how situations come about for somebody.
In terms of guilt and shame, when we try to bring self-compassion online more, if my dad had been given the choice, you know, who would you want to be ill, he'd have been like, well, me, 1,000 times over. Me, you know, I'm 71 almost. We died just after his 71st birthday. She's 36. It should be me. And I'm not okay with that. I'm still not okay with the fact that he died, but I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying here, really. But he would have, you know, he wouldn't want me to suffer in my living years. He would want me to be youthful and exuberant and nurturing my children and still able to support the mental health of other people as well. He wouldn't want me to suffer. I think he'd be a bit like, what even happened there, Marianne, after I died? That was all a bit weird. Like, I wasn't worth it, you know? Wasn't worth all this fuss. I wasn't worth a book. Like, oh, seriously? He would find that hard to get on board with, which made him all the lovelier, you know? But I think he'd be proud of where I'm at right now, but he'd be a bit embarrassed. He'd be embarrassed.
Yeah, I know, just to share a bit of my own experience, I guess, with, health anxiety, I think because funny enough, and it just shows that you can't ever predict, just because someone's lost a parent to ill health doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have that. And I would say, for me, I wouldn't say I necessarily had any health anxieties or anything, but when COVID hit, which I think just for so many reasons obviously impacted so many people in basically every aspect of your life, but when I kind of realised, okay, this is something that's really serious. And my mum turned 60 this year, and she also is a smoker. Sorry, mum, but she is. And I'm kind of, was piecing all this information together, looking at the age about everything. And as Jade said, people became obsessed with kind of, every night on the news, it was like, these are the most updated graphs. You can Google it and it would come straight up. And I suddenly began to find myself feeling really, really, really anxious of, oh my gosh, like I could lose my mum. I could really, really, really lose my mum here. And whilst, there's a kind of element of surely not, because I've lost my dad, so what are the chances of me losing my mum? And to go back to control, there was a huge, overwhelming feeling of, I need to control this. And I remember, I can't remember whether it was the first lockdown or the second one, because my birthday's in November, and I cancelled all my birthday plans. I literally cancelled everything, because I was like, I didn't really go out. I kind of, particularly that first year, I really was trying to control the chances of my mum getting it and the chances of my mum dying, because for me, she goes out, but as in I'm, the younger person, I'm in and out, I do different jobs and all that kind of stuff. And the anxiety for me was something that hit me out of nowhere. And I think,
you were minimizing,
yeah.
I think it's cognitive,
mathematical equation,
isn't it? You were making changes to manage your distress about the fact that you could be the one that brings it home.
Yeah, definitely. And it was something I'd never actually really thought about. And then, which just shows, I think, the knock-on effect of COVID in so many different aspects. But yeah, I just wanted to share, because that was my experience.
And you definitely weren't alone with that, Liv. I think lots of people got obsessed with washing their hands, cleaning products, and they brought them home, like your shopping, etc. Obviously, anything to prevent from bringing it home. I think most people had some sort of level of obsession with that control, where they wanted to prevent either themselves or others from catching it.
The majority of people would ride out that distress and get used to only washing their hands every now and then, and you habituate to the level of distress, whereas when it becomes problematic is when they never reach that reassurance, they never reach that habituation, and so you need to keep doing that, or you need to exacerbate and do more behaviors. That's when it becomes problematic.
Thanks. Yeah, that's really interesting, actually. And that kind of moves on to the next question for you, Becki, kind of our final one here, which is around kind of things we can do to help relieve the health anxiety, like what Libby was just explaining there from her own personal experience, because a lot of your job is providing people with the tools to help with their mental health. And like Marianne just mentioned there, Dr. Marianne, sorry, that it is very complex, health anxiety, and there isn't an easy solution for anybody. But are there anything out there that's easy and free for people to do to relieve these things?
For me, the thing, I just think back about if I'd known what I knew now when I was 13, 14, 24, things would have been very different. One of the simplest things I learned was about breath. The thing that we do every single day, that some people think, why do I need you to tell me how to breathe? The fact that I think it's we aren't connected to our bodies as we once were, because there's so many distractions. When we are feeling anxious or going through a very challenging emotional state of mind, of being, it's very, very difficult to feel connected and present to your body. So mindfulness and breath work are great tools. There's lots of tools within those tool bubbles, if you like, those tool kits. But for me, it was learning to connect to my breath. So it's simple practice of hand to heart, hand to belly, to be able to get that sense of awareness of touch in your body. So we're dropping a little bit from our thinking, overthinking mind to here I am, bum on seat. Can I breathe slow enough and deep enough that I can feel my belly and my chest moving, not like racing, not feeling tight and squeezed, because the likelihood is when we're experiencing a level of anxiety is there's going to be a lot of tightness and tension that we're holding our body, because again, it's that control. So allowing some freedom to breathe, some somatic practices, what I call them body-based practices, where we help to reconnect to our body. There's a great app that's free called the Breathing app, and it's probably the most simple app I've ever discovered that I tell people about, because you can set it to a timer and it makes just a sound, or there's a visual that you follow to start to learn to breathe in for maybe 4, out for 6. I think the very simplest thing I've taught is think of your exhale as your chill out button, that switch that is going to help you over time to relax a little bit. And when you relax a little bit, you can become a little bit more present. So that exhale is your kind of off, you're chilling it out. If you think of when someone says to you, chill out, or you're stressing out, you're feeling anxious, and someone says to you, take a deep breath, the first thing you do is, which is actually going to heighten your emotions and your feeling, your state. If you actually take that breath out, that natural inhale will happen on its own, but take that breath out. It's a very good way to ground yourself, become more present. And then simple tools, I'm sure Marianne knows plenty, but the 5 steps. So just look around the room you're in. 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can smell, 2 things you can maybe, touch, and then maybe something you can maybe taste in the air, just to start to draw yourself back to your body in the present moment. That isn't going to cure the anxiety. It's going to help relieve the intensity of some of the emotions or symptoms you're experiencing. And the rest is then that curiosity starts, and you can start to layer that on. But the most simplest of things I can think of right now. I hope that's helpful.
Would we be able to do one now? Could you help us?
Yeah, sure. Of course.
Just to go off what you said about when you are feeling anxious, there's like a tightness of whether it's in your chest or your stomach, that it's funny how that's literally you're embodying control. It's like a compression kind of thing, isn't it? And it's funny how you might not even realize you're doing it, but it's like the control that you're wanting when you're feeling anxious, your body does it. Yeah,
it's that contraction and it's that protection. You think of your rib cage as a cage. It's protecting your heart, your lungs, the most vital organs in your body. And you're just, a lot of us are very familiar with that tension and tightness here. When we think of our breath, and we'll do this now, our breath goes into our lungs. So we need to think some very basic science here. When you feel that tightness, what you want to try to visualize is space, creating space within your body. Because if you can breathe slower, your breath is going to draw deeper. You're going to draw more oxygen into your body, into your lungs. Then there's the rib cage is then going to need to expand to create that space for that oxygen to come in. Okay, because things are probably going to feel quite close, quite tight, like the world is like pressing down on you. Sometimes that can be something that you can feel. So what we want to do with our breath is to create space in our body and control. I don't like the term breath control, but we've used it in really nice ways here, so I feel like it's an okay thing. So underneath your rib cage is this huge lovely muscle that sits tucked under the rib cage. And in society, we really have this thing around allowing our bellies to stick out. But if you breathe naturally and fully using your diaphragm, naturally, more effectively, that belly is naturally going to move out slightly and drop back in and just expand slightly out and move back in. So we're going to do that if you want to join me in this. So I'm going to invite a palm to your belly. So just below your rib cage, maybe down as low as your belly button, if that feels good. And then the other hand can rest up here on your chest, on your heart, if that feels comfortable. What's also nice is to feel your feet on the floor, because I like to say sometimes it's good to like test that floor out, like, are you actually there to support me? We forget that we're being held up and supported all the time. We seem to think we have to do everything on our own. Let's just test out the floor. And if you want to really draw your awareness to your body, you can close down your eyes. Now, if you're feeling ultra, too heightened, no, that's too much, find a spot in the room, maybe not the screen, just something just to gaze at, almost gaze through, okay, just to soften your gaze. And we're going to invite the breath in through the nose. That's really important. And our exhale is going to come out through the mouth. Now your hands, I just want you to breathe in a natural way. So don't think about it. And I'm sure you've immediately thought about it and changed the way you're breathing. Just going to give you a few moments. Feel your feet on the floor, your bum on your seat. And if you've got a support at the back of your body on your chair, just lean into that a little bit. Allow yourself to be held and supported. There you go. Now I want you to bring your awareness to your palms and just notice maybe the heat of your palms or the coolness of your touch. And then I want you to bring your breath in through your nose nice and slowly. And open your mouth slightly to let that breath go. And do that 2 more times. So you're going to bring that breath in through your nose and sigh out through the mouth. And as you continue to do that, just notice what's happening at your palms. You may only feel the palm at the chest slightly moving. So I'm going to invite you to breathe with me. You can take another one of those sighs. We're going to take a breath in for 4, and our exhale is going to be to the count of 6. Okay, if that feels too much, you can bring that down. So we'll just start with another one of those grounding sighs, just allowing that nice big drop into your seat. We take that breath in through the nose for 2, 3, 4, and out through the mouth for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let's draw that breath back in again for 2, for 3, and 4, and let it go for 6, for 5, for 4, 3, 2, and 1. Back in slowly for 4. Just see if you can draw that breath in a little bit slower. So we're not sipping the air in, we're slowly drawing that breath in. So it goes as deep as if it's feeling like the belly is filling with breath, then your chest. And then notice your chest and your belly soften as you exhale. So just stay with that flow. And if it feels comfortable, visualize a wave in your mind. Maybe even the sound of the wave might be like your breath right now. So that rising of the breath on the inhale for 4, and that wave is just gently flowing down on that exhale. Lovely. So just taking 3 more breaths there. Maybe inviting just the breath in and out the nose now. You can seal the lips. Just just allowing real depth to the breath, feeling the belly and the chest, maybe even the collarbones lifting, and then letting them fall back. Lovely. And then you can relax your hands if you want to. Another lovely practice is to visualize an infinity loop in your mind. Okay, so we're going to connect our breath. So this is a nice conscious connected breath. That exhale, that wave, how are you feeling? Yeah, nice chilled faces. So just notice how you're feeling, what you're feeling, and maybe where you're feeling that breath. And hopefully that inhale of 4 felt good, that exhale of 6 felt good. So we're going to kind of bring it into an even breath. So just one more short practice here. You can relax the hands or keep them where they are. We're going to slowly take a nice grounding exhale. And then you're going to breathe in with me for 2, 3, 4, 5, and out 2, 3, 4, 5. Breathing in 2, 3, 4, 5, out 2, 3, 4, and 5. Breathing in slowly for 5, filling up, and then softly, gently releasing for 5. Allowing your diaphragm to be used here. So allowing that diaphragm to move down towards your belly. Letting your belly rise, letting your belly soften back. And take one more breath in for 5. And slowly out for 5. And then just feel your feet on the floor. Maybe if your eyes are closed, just gaze down to your lap. Or if you're gazing around the room, just gaze to your lap. And just blinking open the eyes and just take in maybe the color of your top, or your trousers, whatever you're wearing. And maybe feel into the feel of the floor, your socks. And maybe even rub the fingertips together just to bring you back to your body. And I am a really big fan of a sigh. The sigh is your off switch, so please fully embrace those sighs. How are you feeling? How are you feeling, Libby?
I could have fallen asleep there, Becki.
I'm told I have a very relaxing voice, so
You do.
hopefully you're feeling quite zen.
Yeah, I'm feeling very calm right now, and you just don't even realise. Before I was doing very shallow breaths without me even realising it, you know.
So what did you notice? What was the first just so people watching, listening, know whether they were doing it right? Because that's always the thing we worry about, isn't it? What was your experience? What did you notice?
First of all, notice how even when you were like, sit back in the chair, like let yourself be supported. It's like you realise, God, I was sitting forward, I was leaning on this, I was like all like this, and then it's like, oh, right, okay, actually, let's just relax, and yeah, I noticed my breath was kind of shallow, and yeah, my heart was beating quite fast, and then by the end, even when we started properly breathing in and out, I kind of felt tingly a little bit, and I felt like I was actually breathing, like there was actually oxygen being pumped through my body, and then I just felt very calm.
Oh, lovely. Did you notice? Were you able to get your breath feeling it at your belly using the diet?
Yeah.
Did that feel challenging?
Yeah, because even though it's meant to be natural, because as you said, there's this, we're like, particularly as women as well, very socialized to, you know, hold yourself in a certain way so that you look a certain way. It's then, counterproductive, I guess. So to actually how we're meant to breathe.
Just for everyone listening, the diaphragm being the muscle. So when we inhale, when we draw that breath in, that muscle starts to contract. But to do that, that means it flattens out, which means it moves from your rib cage, underneath your rib cage, down towards your belly. So your belly has to move out slightly to make space for the diaphragm to move down, and the diaphragm moves down so the rib cage can expand with the lungs. So it's natural that the body does this, but we've been kind of programmed over the years and become very habitual to make smaller breaths. How was your experience, Jade? Thank you for sharing, Libby.
Yeah, it was great. I think you feel very present, very like you said. I think the first time, I can't remember whether it was through breath work, through yoga or Pilates, but the first time I remember doing it, it felt so, like Libby just said, so unnatural to breathe that way. But reminding yourself to do it, I think, yeah, it really helps. And yeah, I feel very calm, relaxed, ready
Should
to
have done
finish,
this.
ready to finish my day.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I think it's important to remember we can feel very self-conscious about exhaling too because of bad breath.
Yeah.
Chewing gum adverts, years of chewing gum adverts, is that, you know, we don't feel comfortable. It's taken me years. I hold a lot of tension around my mouth because you don't want to say the wrong thing, or, you know, that, and then the belly. But the tingles, yeah, you're bringing more oxygen into your body. So a little fact is, I think they say the average person only uses a 10% range of their diaphragm on a daily basis. So there you go, diaphragmatic breathing, belly breathing.
That was brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was a bit spontaneous, that last little bit, but that's always nice to do that. Dr. Marianne, Becki, thank you so much for joining us. And I think, yeah, just thank you for sharing like everything that you've shared today, but also your personal experiences as well. And thank you for being our first guest on our first episode. So thank you very much. And we will be posting this on our new online community, which is really exciting. And we will share all of your social medias and all that kind of stuff so people can, you know, give you a follow and everything. So thank you both so much for joining us in today's episode.
Thank you.